Hi, and welcome to this first session of 8 on performance review conversations, having those meaningful conversations with our team, trying to improve performance, trying to transform behaviours within the workplace. My name is Rachel Smith, and I'm the head of learning at Entelechy, and we are all about that business of transforming people's performance and improving it and giving them the power to deliver on that. So that's why we're here talking about this today. I want you to have a look at this guy's body language. And I think you'll recognise, like I do, that this is how you feel when you are in that situation of having to go into a performance review. I think both parties feel this way. I think the party who's having to do the review, as well as those that are experiencing the review, have a trepidation, a feeling of fear as they walk into the room. And there's actually been research that says that every single person hates performance reviews. Now, that research was reported in the Washington Post, but it was actually a research project done by Harvard. And that study explored whether it mattered whether you got negative feedback or not, or whether you were powerful in your role or not. So imagine if you are a person who is confident walking into that situation, you would think that, cool, great, I love this. I know I'm rocking it. But actually, even those people knew that at some point during that session, the person was going to have to mention the sort of aspects of their performance that they would be waiting, and they'd be waiting to know what to improve. And I know that because I sit there listening, the sandwich that we use during that feedback. And I'm listening to all the good things at the beginning, and I'm going, I know something's going to be awful in a minute. And then it'll be good again, but I'm still now reeling from the awful. Now, again, in further research and in a different article in the Washington Post, there was proof that during brain studies that during these conversations, part of our brain actually switches off. So we think we're having the most powerful effect on our people by going through these review conversations, when in effect, they're surviving it. Their brain has gone into a fight, flight, freeze mode, and they're not listening to a thing. They're not taking on board a thing. All they want to do is get out of there. Now, this might not be your reality. You might not think that this is the way that it actually genuinely is. So I'm going to give you a moment to reflect, because this is an interactive session, and I'd really enjoy your comments on your thoughts on this topic. So when you go into performance management conversations, into these reviews or appraisals, whatever you choose to call them, how does it make you feel? So if you're a line manager and you're taking the line manager role, how does that make you feel in that role? But equally, when you're an employee going into that with your line manager, what emotions do you hold inside when you're going into a conversation that talks about your performance and talks about how to maximise your impact in the workplace? Over in the corner there, you'd notice it says that you can make notes if you wish, and some people need to write notes to reflect. You might indeed just, though, ponder it in your mind and have a really good think about how this experience makes you feel. I'm going to give you a countdown so you know how much time you've got. Have a good thought about how this process affects you. Now, realistically, we should be glad of that feedback. We should be like, oh, thank you for helping me improve. Thank you for giving me that opportunity to be my best self. We should be like, yep, completely get it. I agree with that assessment of my performance, and be all adult about it. But the truth is that we all have an inner child inside ourselves. Some people cruelly call that ego, which is, this idea of this fragile self that's easily broken that we fight to defend because it's all about us. But that's a little bit cruel. In fact, we all have an inner child that asks us to all the time, am I good enough? Am I loved by these people? Am I safe? And we can't ignore those really powerful fundamental needs that we have within ourselves. So what I'm suggesting is that we have to acknowledge that inner person, that inner child, and do something about it and then in so doing, making these conversations as meaningful and powerful as they can be. So what I'm proposing is a structure to these conversations, a transparent structure, so everyone knows what the process is, everyone knows the steps that the line manager is going to take his employee through or her employee through, and that structure has purpose. So each stage of that structure has a really strong, purposeful reason for being there that's going to be beneficial to the employee and beneficial to the company. You're going to hear me talk a lot about reciprocal benefit, because that's what I think these conversations are all about. Now, you might already believe, and rightly so, that you have a very strong structure for your appraisals, performance reviews, performance management conversations, and that's cool. And I'm going to invite you to reflect on that right now. Equally, you might be at the other end of the conversation where every line manager in the organisation makes up their own version of that conversation, and there is no transparency, there is no set structure, and therefore it's completely predicated on the strength of that line manager and their abilities. So I'm going to give you time to reflect, and again, like I said before, feel free to just ponder it in your mind or take notes right now, and maybe even share them with us after this session. Thank you for reflecting, and remember to drop your reflections into the comments below, and share with us your thoughts and your ideas about your structure and where you think you are as an organisation in terms of these conversations, and how meaningful and how safe and how productive they are for everyone involved. Now, over the next 7 sessions following this, I'm going to take you through a structure that we feel is incredibly powerful and a very strong way of getting to this reciprocal benefit that I spoke about. So first of all, next session, we'll talk about celebrations and the importance of starting any conversation such as this with the celebrations, with the spotting of the good. Then we'll talk about why it's important to get the employee's version of the story of their experience of work and how they feel they're improving and where they feel they've contributed. And to really hear that and to actively listen to that rather than waiting to respond. We'll then talk about navigating the gap. That's the tricky bit. So the employee's just told you your version and you're coming with a very different version potentially, a very similar version potentially, who knows? But there will be a gap to navigate. So how do you do that? And then it's about talking about the career of that employee, working out what you can do in order to guide them on that career, what hopes and what dreams and where they're hoping this is all taking them, and what can you do to help. And then here's the reciprocal benefit, because that employee is employed in order to give benefit to the organisation. Of course they are. They're there in order to have an impact. So what can the employee do in order to align to what the company needs from them? And from that, there has to be a what next. In all of these conversations, everyone must walk out with a what next. So how do you set up a purposeful action plan for that what next? And finally, ongoing responsibilities. Doesn't stop at the end of that meeting. After that meeting, both the line manager and the employee has something to do in order to really drive home the effectiveness of that conversation. Now, I'm really looking forward to taking you through that, and my hope is that you will join me in the next session, and the session after that, and the session after that, and really share your ideas and thoughts with the community so that they understand how to make the best of these very important, very powerful, meaningful conversations that will deliver the transformation that the organisation requires. Thanks for listening. Thanks for taking part. And I hope this is going to be an exciting further 7 sessions for you.